So naturally, you want to create more wealth. I know all you guys are watching the show to create more wealth. But what does it mean to create true wealth, true legacy wealth? What is that? That's what we're going to talk about with Julie today. Tune in. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you, those that work so freaking hard for your money, and you're now ready for your money to start working harder for you today. You want that freedom of cash flow right now. You don't have to wait 30 or 40 billion years for it. You want it today so you can live that life that you love with those that you love. But as you know, most importantly, it's not just about getting rich. It's about living a true rich life, because as you're blessed financially, as you have more resource and ability and stewardship, you can bless the lives of those around you. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Again, always thank you for binging and sharing. Quick shout out to many of you that have been reaching out to us recently, looking for whether it's helping the infinite banking side or even trying to figure out how to create more passive income. Always appreciate you, because seriously, you inspire me seeing the action and the changes you're making in your lives. So thank you so much for doing so. All right, guys. So I'm bringing on a guest here today that I promise you, we will try to keep this to like the typical show length for you, because Julie Hawley here, she's with Three Keys Investment. And I'll tell you, like, ever since I've met Julie, like, it's like a kindred spirit. It's been a very easy to talk with her, and you'll realize pretty quickly how she's perfect guest for this show. No pressure, Julie. But that's the thing is, like, guys, you'll realize that, I mean, not only is she in the investing space, but really about talking about abundance, and especially about what is this true legacy wealth? What is that? How do we create wealth that goes beyond just the money? That's what we're going to talk with Julie today. So Julie, welcome to our show.
Chris, I'm so excited to be here on your show. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you got to give them your background, like tell them, like, how did you even get to this place? What even got you to this path? Because I know it's probably not the intended path that you had, but it's perfect.
I it is not the path that I ever had planned in my life. I never thought I would be a full-time commercial real estate investor, right? I never thought I'd coach people. This was not on my trajectory, but I started a career as a public school teacher because I love helping people. That has always been my heart. It's always been like what's driven me is like, how do I help people? How do I help people level up? And at some point, I realized I'd really like to be compensated and to be able to make a little bit more, have a little more discretionary income, and still help people. And when
Yeah.
I decided to transition from single family real estate investing into full time commercial real estate investing, I realized I could help people level up and I could also help my family at the
Yeah.
same time. And it was what I love to have is a win-win-win. Like my investors win, the community wins, the residents win, my family wins, like everybody winning. I feel like Oprah.
Mhm.
And that makes like, I don't have to be Oprah, but I like that concept of like, hey, here's a car for you and you and you. Everybody wins. We're all good. This is so much fun. And so that's really the trajectory that I took. There are lots of ups and downs and highs and lows in between there. A lot of life lives over 20 years, but that's like the succinct, which Chris, like, wow, Julie, that was succinct.
It was. No, it was a good overview. So I'm going to definitely want to dig into that story a little bit, because, like, for example, I know we've got listeners that are also school teachers, maybe like you were as well. I know we have had a few clients ourselves that have reached out. And the one thing I've learned with school teachers is that the one thing they enjoy is they love their safe path, right? Because there's a nice paved path for you, especially with, even you're probably one of the few professions that has a promise of a pension or some kind of, retirement that they've got to take care of you. What got you to break away from that to go do real estate investing?
Whoa. Well, you just like hit the little zinger right there, truly. So I started teaching when I was 22 years old. I made like $27,000 a year.
What did you teach?
And I taught first grade. That's where I
Awesome.
started was first grade. I love it. I love first grade, second grade. You teach them how to read and they love you. They think you're great. It's
Hmm.
fantastic. But here's what happened. My third year, no, so it would have been my fourth year of teaching. And I say that because I taught 3 years at one school and then I transitioned to another school. And when I
Mhm.
made that transition to a new district, I felt comfortable and I felt exactly like you said. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am going to be able to just enjoy kind of this life of contribution. It will feel
Mhm.
meaningful and I'll have summers off. Yeah, it's a thing. Like, okay, I'll have time off. I'm not going to make as much money. That's fine. Life is a series of trades, is what I was thinking. And
Mhm.
I was okay with that. But then they started handing out pink slips.
Mm.
And that's when I had a real reality check. And the thing is, I thought if I'm going to work for the government, that seems it as a teacher, then
Mhm.
surely I am going to have job security. I mean, they're not
Yeah.
shutting schools down. Come on, right? People are still having
Right.
kids. Like I'm thinking this is job security and this is going to be great. And then they start handing out those pink slips. And that was that reality check of girl, you got to have your own back. So I, at that point, so I was single at that point. I had a mortgage on my own. I was house hacking. And I'm thinking, house hacking listener, that's when if you own a house and you rent out a room in your house to offset your income, they didn't call it that back in the day, but now they're
Mhm.
these fancy terms. So that's what I was doing to make everything work in my life. And I'm thinking, so the government actually doesn't have my back. Now, I never got the pink slip. I was like two people up in seniority from getting the pink slip. And my friend who did get the pink slip, she ended up having the job again the following year. But that was enough to plant that seed of doubt in my mind to make me realize I have to make sure that I have a plan for Julie
Mhm.
because the government's not going to save me. The government's not going to rescue me. Their bailout plans are not for people like me. They're for other people, and I'm never going to qualify for their bailout plans. So I need to make sure that I'm building my boat as I go along. And with that, I would also say, having done a lot of research over the last few years, when I think about the security of a pension, I don't know that there's much security in the pension. When I look at, I taught in California and I look at the CalSTRS accounts, I'm like, they're billions of dollars in the red.
Yeah.
How does that, like, literally, if you research it and they don't seem to think anything of it, it's okay. Now, I don't know. I guess some people think that's okay to operate in the red with my future, but I was a little more concerned about thinking if I'm at retirement age, think about 2008 when we had the Great Recession and there was this whole cohort, this whole demographic that was set to retire. And
Mhm.
then their entire retirement accounts were like, I got a little squirrely over there with my ring light. The retirement accounts just like evaporated,
Yeah.
right? With the Enron scandal and things like that. I'm thinking,
Right.
I don't want to be playing Russian roulette with my future pension retirement. And so we even have to be thinking larger than whatever our pension plan is. And if we're not working for the government, we still need to be thinking, okay, in addition to whatever is going on over here with my company, what am I building?
Yeah.
I told you you hit a zinger on that one.
Yeah. Well, I bet you a lot of people can relate to that because there's, that's a fear I hear from a lot of people, right? It's just like they don't want it to be true, right? They want to believe that everything's gonna be rosy, everything's gonna work out. But there's always that thing in the back of your mind of like, what if? What if it doesn't work out? What am I going to do? How do I not become a burden on other people? How do I actually become self-reliant and independent in a way? And that's where that financial independence comes in, right?
Mm-hmm. In a very big way. Yes.
And so you start with house hacking, but now you went all the way to commercial. How did that transition work?
Wow. So there's a lot of iterations in there.
Mhm.
And I tell the story. I mean, there are so many different ways we can tell the story, but
Mhm.
I'll try to be somewhat succinct, right? Is that I found myself making a mortgage payment on my own because I had chosen to leave an abusive marriage.
Mhm.
And that blessed me also in the sense of finding safety in life. But my attorney got me the house. But then it was like, how do I pay for this house? So that's how I
Right.
started house hacking. And I have found that as I share that story openly with people, it's very relatable. And it's not just women who relate to this story. And
Hmm.
so unfortunately life happens. And so if that's you, like you can you can build the ship. It's going to be okay. And you can always reach out to me. I will encourage you. So I go from that situation to being blessed with what I call a second chance life and opportunity. And my husband and I got together, and in that process we were talking about a vision for our own life. And that vision was, I didn't look good on paper. So I struggled to be able to rent an apartment
Hmm.
as I'm trying to get leave an abusive situation. And I'm trying to just like collect myself, which it takes a lot of courage to just do that part. And
Yeah.
then here I am trying to rent an apartment, and I'm struggling to figure that out, which is kind of crazy to me, since now I own apartments.
Hmm.
And in that process, my husband and I decided, we're like, let's just let's live a simple lifestyle. We like simplicity. We'll buy a
Hmm.
modest house. We will, we're going to go ahead, we'll fix it up, and then we'll rent it out, and we'll buy another, and we'll just keep doing that over the years of our life. And that was our plan in
Yeah.
our 20s. That was our plan.
Mhm.
And in that process, it was great. We thought we can have full ownership over who we get to rent this home out to, or we could rent out rooms, however we want to do this. But we really had that heart, again, going back to that heart to serve and support people. How do we help people caught in the fray of life, in the margins of life, who there just are certain demographics where you're not going to qualify for this, you're not going to qualify, you're just in this middle zone that you have to figure things out on your own. I'm like, how do
Hmm.
we help those people? And then after we had a couple of kids of our own, and we had, because I guess we are going to have other people's kids. I'm sorry, that's just a funny statement. Yes, we had our own
Yeah.
kids. and, um, and so in that process, I realized, like, this feels really vulnerable. This feels really uncomfortable. I'm really not sure about this one-to-one ratio. I mean, we have a house and we have one resident or family in that. One person's paying the mortgage, the
Hmm.
rent that pays the mortgage. What happens? It just, I was not feeling good with this. I wasn't feeling comfortable. And in that process, I said, there's got to be a better way. And my
Hmm.
husband said, just research it. Let's stick with real estate because we love real estate investing, but let's see if there's something else we can do. And in that process, I devoured copious amounts of content, just like you're doing right now, listener. And I discovered apartment syndication. And that's just everybody crowdfunding, pooling money to buy something that you can't buy on your own. And that was my aha. I said, wow, if I buy a 10 unit apartment, which I've never bought a 10 unit apartment, most everything is at least 100 units that we've
Hmm.
purchased. And if I buy a 10 unit apartment and one of those units is vacant, I'm still making everything, all the ends are met. But
Yeah.
even better is that there's a business plan backing this up. And I absolutely loved that it just didn't feel as loosey goosey. And it didn't feel as if, wow, okay, well, the fence blew down. So that's going to take this huge chunk out of reserves. Or there's a tree that went through the sewer lines. So now we've got to dump money. It just didn't feel like it was going to be this money, just this money pit type situation, because it felt like there's a plan, and it's a very
Yeah.
clear plan. And yes, we do have those with single family homes. It's more of a business operation than it is the kind of mom and pop style of doing things. So that was how I made that transition from single family all the way into commercial real estate investing, where, I mean, we own roughly, we've or have held ownership in almost 1,000 units at this
Yeah.
point.
And so obviously you're not teaching today, correct?
I have not been teaching for some years now, and but I teach, right?
You
Just like
do.
you and I are doing this right now. We're teaching our listeners, I have my podcast, The Conscious Investor. So I'm able to teach people through that. I go to events and speak and teach. I host my own event and speak. So it's really interesting to see that the heart of a teacher is just simply repurposed
Mhm.
into serving and supporting. And this is what's cool, Chris, is that we're going now from top down. So I used to think if I can, serve and support these kids and pour into them, they'll grow up into these wonderful humans.
Mhm.
And they have. A lot of them are married and have kids now, which is crazy to me.
If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now.
And what's really neat is that if I can support adults and help them have their finances just like you do, right? We help people have a better financial plan, another avenue with alternative assets in their portfolio and such. And so that gives peace of mind. Well, what happens when mom and dad have peace of mind? Well, they're going to show up to work better. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
show up to their marriage better. They're going to show up for their kids better. So when we go, I had this whole paradigm flip where I love supporting adults now, because if I can support adults, they're going to show up better and they're going to pour into everyone around them, including the youth, in a really powerful way. And man, how great is it if you get to grow up in a home where you're feeling really connected and feeling loved and your emotional needs are being met in a powerful way.
So true. I usually say this question for the end, but I'm gonna ask you this question now because it's tying in. But obviously our podcast is called the Money Ripples podcast, right? And I know you and I have talked off air about that ripple effect, and it sounds like you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of describing a ripple effect of sorts. What do you feel is your ripple effect? Like, what is your purpose, or what do you feel like is you're here to do on this planet?
This is the best way of putting it, which I've only recently discovered.
Mhm.
And that is, I'm really in the wish fulfillment business.
Mm.
And that sounds really bizarre. And the first time I put that together with someone I'm collaborating with, I was like, that just sounds really like so kind
Like
of
a fairy
maybe even,
godmother.
yeah. And I'm like, but that's exactly what I do. And
Hmm.
I started looking at all of the evidence and I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I do. I help people bring things to life that they don't think they can do. If that's starting a business, if that's investing, if that's connecting to them to someone like you, Chris, because how you're going to support them. So I help people bring those wishes to life. That might be by repositioning them in their mind. It might be by introducing them to the right people that are going to help them and collaborate with them. So that is a ripple that I have. And when I think about, I launched a junior robotics team. I've lived since 2016. I've lived in rural North Idaho. So basically, I'm Canadian, and it's a two stoplight town. It was one stoplight for a little bit. And I'm thinking, how do these kids in rural North Idaho compete on a global in the global world? Like, how
Hmm.
does that even happen? They don't have the access, the proximity to the same things that they would have if my kids grew up in Denver, where they were born, or California, where they lived their early years. And I'm thinking, how are these kids going to go anywhere? So I start this junior robotics team
Hmm.
in the first Lego League, right? And so we go to the World Championship and show the very first year. So we go from the top of the US Canadian border down to Houston, Texas.
Hmm.
So, like, end to end, these are second and third grade students. And this is a lot of first flights. We had it fully funded. They were able to have a parent come along, because who in their right mind is going to just take seven, eight and 9 year olds, on their first flights, right?
Right.
But in that process, when I think about, we went to NASA, We got to go to a boardwalk. They got to go to a zoo. A lot of experiences that they cannot have in rural North Idaho. They got to meet kids from around the globe. And as we're sitting there at the NASA Center, I'm sitting beside one of the team members who is also a student of mine. And we're watching this movie, and she just says, she looks over to me, she says, Mrs. Holly, I'm going to be one of the women who go to outer space. And like she said it
Wow.
with this like deep conviction. And she's now in high school, and
Hmm.
she has this mission to go clean up outer space. So when I think about the ripple effects of what do you do when you place people in proximity to something that is going to connect them with their greater purpose, their
Yeah.
greater potential. And for, one of my clients that was starting his own law firm, that's like having a massive ripple effect in multiple ways. And another client, it's, starting a business and being able to go to every one of her daughter's volleyball games. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's really interesting, with investors, it's like that peace of mind. I don't have to be a landlord, but I can still be involved in real estate. So
Hmm.
it's just a beautiful opportunity. I think that's my ultimate ripple, is just helping people bring their wishes to life.
I love it. I love that a lot. That's great. So it's kind of like the whole make a wish, but it's your own version. It's your own version of helping make that possible for each person, right? And they don't have to be dying. I mean, we all are, I guess, technically. So,
Thank you for saying that though, because that's what's really interesting. I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and
mhm.
I was working on a social post about that, where it's like we don't need to wait until we're at a really debilitated state in order to have our wish come true. Like those
Right.
people that, let me wait till I retire in order to go travel. Oh, wait. And now I'm actually not mobile enough to travel for whatever reason, or something's happened, right? Like,
Yeah.
actually, wishes should come true. When you have your wish is meant to come true. That's why you can have that wish. That's why you can see that wish.
That's right. Right there. Right.
Exactly. I love this. I was reading that earlier. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Live
Live
your
your life
life
now, not
now,
tomorrow.
not tomorrow.
That's right. Because we don't know if tomorrow's guaranteed. But we got today. That's about it.
That's right.
Well, and that kind of ties in with the what we're talking about at the beginning of this episode is legacy wealth. Tell us more about that. Like, how do you see legacy wealth? How does someone create that in their life?
Yeah. So I'm going to pick a bone, and maybe we can have a paradigm shift. Maybe I'll be friendly about this, right?
Mhm.
With you listener, you might be into building legacy wealth, and that's beautiful. I want to leave things behind for all these generations, and it's usually monetary things, funds left behind. But in this process of building out the conscious investor, which is my primary brand,
Mhm.
I realized that wealth is really different than we imagine. And oftentimes I have discovered that people are chasing after the financial wealth in life, and everything is tied to their assets, tied to their net worth. And
Right.
it's great. We're high performers largely. And it's like, when I achieve this metric, then, and it's an if then equation in life. And I will try to be succinct with this first part, just because I want to dive into the last part. But there are three types of wealth. So we
Mhm.
have the tangible wealth, and I like that this is akin to the boomers and the Xers, and we like our things, which is why we have these luxury storage units now for all the toys, and it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we got our stuff. And then you have your Gen X, or your millennials, and the X's and the Y's and the alphas. I don't know. There's so many different generations now. But I say that they have the intangible wealth, and that is more um, in a loving way, like the tattoos. Like, I've had these experiences. I've traveled around the world, and things don't hold me back, because I'm the container and everything is within me. And, it's a real ethereal type, of wealth.
Yeah.
Two sides of the exact same coin. Tangible and intangible, really, you're hoarding something. You're either hoarding things you can touch, or you're hoarding experiences, and all of that vaporizes.
Mm.
But here's the best wealth in the world. And this is what I call transferable wealth. And this is what I would like to see, a paradigm shift from legacy wealth into transferable wealth, because there's no if then equation. It is decoupled from our net worth. Because when we have transferable wealth, we're now transferring, just like you and I are doing in this episode, we're
Mhm.
transferring all of our knowledge, skills, experience, wisdom. Now we get to transfer that to someone else. And there is
Right.
no greater gift that we can give anyone than to impart all of that type of information and say, go get him, Tiger. Because
Mhm.
no matter how much money you leave behind for your kids, something happens in the economy. And even if they're brilliant, something can happen in the economy and it's all gone. But
Yeah.
if you can impart all of that wisdom, knowledge, skills, experience into someone, and even if you only have a facet, now you've changed them for life. And this is
Mhm.
why Henry Ford, he's like, fine, I can rebuild a business. Like, that's no big deal. Like, if I
Mhm.
lose everything, that's not a big deal. And this is why we see people who do have failures in their business careers, they can very quickly recover from that because they have the blueprint. They know how to run the play and they can go for it. And the coolest part about this is that everyone has something to offer. My daughter and my son, they actually have some insights that are really helpful to me. Even
Yeah.
though they're teens, they still have things that they can impart and transfer to me that are really great. Because, like, how else are we going to know the slang of today? Slay. I mean, I'm kind of teasing on that,
That
but at
seems
the
a little
same time,
sus to me.
exactly. I was trying to think of all the different things, right? you know, so, but they do show us, they give us a different perspective, and that helps us show up in the world. And so maybe you find yourself in a position like me in my early 20s, in a really caught in the margins point of life, but I'm still able to impart some wisdom to other people. Even though it looks like I have nothing, I still
Mhm.
have something that I can contribute. And so I love this concept that we don't have to have dollars and cents to be making a difference in the world.
Yeah.
We all have the opportunity to transfer wealth. And to me, that transcends legacy wealth. That's doing something that's going to cast a greater ripple in the world. And I'm all about that.
I would love that. That's that's just going right along with that whole ripple effect, isn't it? But it kind of
It
adds
is.
to it because you don't have to be like you said, like you don't have to be, some big celebrity or anything like that. Like wherever you are, you can lift where you stand. You can bless someone's life no matter what situation you're in. And I looking back, I can even see like where I've had the roughest times and situations in my life. Still, I was able to help, serve people, even if it's maybe not financially, but maybe in some way, whether it's serving them with my body and like, helping shovel snow. It could be serving them by teaching them something. I mean, there's so many ways you can give to people. It's really, it's expansive.
It really is. Even I was on my walk. You know that when I'm on walks, I talk with people a lot of times, and I was talking with someone on my walk today, and the person was asking me, "Here's what I'm thinking with a podcast," and they were running this idea by me, and I was able to help that person quickly gain clarity. And I said, "So what I'm hearing is blah blah blah," and it was like green lights, full set of green lights for this
Mhm.
person in their mind, right? And so did that take me, 6 minute conversation, set somebody into a totally different trajectory that's going to help shift the lines. It didn't
Yeah.
cost me any money, but it cost me years of building up my own podcasting experience, right? So I have this
Yeah.
experience that for me, it's like, well, that's not hard and I can help you out. That's great.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, I know we're running out of time, but I wanted you to bring up because it goes on with this subject here. You have this Conscious Investor Growth Summit coming up here in March of 2025, correct?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I certainly hope that you make it out there because it is absolutely phenomenal. The Conscious Investor Growth Summit, I say it's not an event, it's an experience. And those who come experience it, which is why our super early bird tickets sold very quickly because people who came, they knew. They're like, I have to go back.
Hmm.
Every year the speaker lineup is different. So there might be one or two speakers that are coming back, but different topics. But generally speaking, the entire speaker lineup every year shifts, and we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. And so we're not lopsided in any way. It's the only investing seminar conference that I know of where people are actually being served in a holistic way.
Yeah.
And what event are you going to that's going to allow you to just step outside the resort to go into a lake to do your cold plunge? I mean, that right there. I'm not a cold plunger, but I'll go plunge with the people. So we have a lot of it's more of an immersive experience than it is a lecture, and the speakers are just there to serve. And that's
Yeah.
one of the prereqs for the speakers is, hey, are you going to be available and available to everyone while you are there? Like, we're
Right.
here to serve. If that doesn't work for you, speaker, that's okay. But I hand select every single speaker, and they are coming to serve, and it's exceptional. So consciousinvestorgrowthsummit.com is where all the information is at. And if any of this is resonating with you, I highly recommend that you come. It's limited to 150 people for a reason. It's all about connection and community and really building strong relationships.
Well, and that in beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I mean, you guys haven't been there. I went there for the first time a couple of years ago for an investor meeting that I did, and man, I fell in love with that place. It's so gorgeous up there.
It's incredible, and the Coeur d'Alene Resort is right there. It's on the water.
Mm.
Everything is walkable, and we have offsite excursions where we go in the evenings and such. So it's just honestly, it's fun, it's refreshing, it's invigorating, and it is gorgeous.
Oh, lovely. Well, yeah, we'll be sure to put that link in the show notes for anybody who's really interested in not just having, like you said, not just learning something, but having that experience, that connection, that something that can kind of help create a launch pad for you, right? Because I've learned it's not about all the information you're getting, because if that were the case, you'd be listening to all these podcasts and your life would be always changing with every single podcast. But often it's like one moment in time, one experience that hits you, not just in your head, but also in your heart, that changes everything. And
Mm.
that's the kind of thing that you should really be seeking for. That's why these kind of summits and these kind of events really do make a big difference, because it's the experience that can change your life and change the trajectory of where your life is going.
I love that. And I'll also encourage people, if you have a spouse or partner that is maybe reluctant, this is that type of event. I feel it's such a bridge. We had
Mm.
so many couples come because it's such a different event where it's very human connection networking. It's very everyone's included. And it was really interesting to see that a lot of the real estate investors that were there and kind of
Mhm.
the hardcore investors, they were surprised that they were impacted so much so by the other topics. So a lot of times if we go to events, we're going to self-select and we're going to go to what we are drawn towards, and we miss out maybe on it's like a kid and vegetables on the dinner plate. Like, no, I don't want to eat my vegetables. No thanks, right? And
Mhm.
and so by nature of how the event is structured, they're sitting through these presentations and you could just see the transformation taking place in people's lives.
Yeah.
They're eating the vegetables for the first time in a long
Right.
time, and it's like, I didn't. And they would tell me, I had so many people come up to me and say, I had no idea that I needed that right there. And it's what I call a soft skill. It's not the tactical,
Mhm.
here's how you're going to get your first million tomorrow. It's the soft skills that heal your heart, that
Yeah.
help you internally become resilient to be able to go and do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Julie, that's awesome. Like I said, we'll put that link in the show notes for everybody there, as well as ways to connect with you on social media. I know definitely people are probably going to follow you and learn more about you too. So thank you so much for coming on today. I mean, everything you've said today has been just pure gold.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. I always love our conversations, and it's fun to have a conversation that can be shared with your listeners.
Absolutely. I'm glad they could be a fly on the wall with us. So that's awesome too. So, well, everybody, yeah, be sure to check that out. Be sure to follow Julie, as well as be sure to check out her summit that's coming up here in March. So definitely, we want to make sure we give you plenty of time to register. But remember, it is capped at 150. So if you want to go, be sure you do that. Don't procrastinate, because if you do, you're waiting until 2026 or later before you can actually do it again. So, guys,
Okay.
remember, it's not about listening to this show. It's about going and doing something with it that can change your life from this point forward. Go and make it a wonderful process week, and we'll see you later.